Welcome to the Feisworld podcast, engaging conversations that cross the boundaries between business, art, and the digital world.
Right after the earthquake, I think we were all in a state of shock. Was the government ready for it? No. We are trying to accelerate women entrepreneurship in Nepal. I would say it's a movement. It's not just a campaign,
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Feisworld podcast. This is your host, Fei Wu. Today, I want to welcome Tsering Doma Sherpa to Feisworld. She's a communications and program coordinator at Daayitwa in Nepal. I'm going to do my best. Daayitwa, Daayitwa, translates as self-responsibility in English. This organization envisions a thriving Nepal where all citizens embrace their responsibilities to collectively transform societal challenges into innovative opportunities. Tsering and I met at Freiburg Academy in Freiburg, Maine. She was just 15 years old. Unlike the rest of the international students, myself included, who had known at least a few other students from the same country, Tsering was there by herself. She was the only one from Nepal. She had several jobs on campus. She was a straight-A student. Many of us friends assumed that she would be at Wall Street in no time, making big money and living an extravagant life. She deserves it. But we were all wrong. It was Tsering's dream to serve the community, especially people who are underprivileged and are in desperate need of help and support. She worked for several organizations including Equal Access Nepal and the United Nations. A few years ago, Tsering moved back to her homeland, Nepal. In 2014, Tsering became a fellow at Daayitwa, and in 2016, she began focusing on a program called Women's Rural Acceleration Enterprise Project. You probably guessed it, this particular program did not exist until recently. After Tsering and her team discovered that out of 60 applicants who applied to the regular REAP program, only 7 of them were women. One woman became one of the 5 finalists, and she said in the video, "Now it's not just my turn, but 500 other women in Popa, Nepal, where the WREAP was launched." With the support of grants and donations today at WREAP, many more female entrepreneurs can participate in leadership and technical training, networking, and facilitation of investment. This episode isn't fueled by call to actions for your donations. Instead, we hope to tell a story, how a small group of young people can truly make a lasting impact. Seth Godin often uses the phrase, edges. Great companies and programs are built around the edges. He says, build something that people will look for, something that people will talk about, something we would miss if it were gone. WREAP hasn't reached tens of thousands of women in Nepal, but I'm sure it will, just a matter of time and determination by people like Tsering. Starting with just a few hundred women in 2016, I look forward to seeing many more lives that will be changed by this program. I have also included videos of the WREAP program on the blog post where you can hear the stories told by those talented and strong women. Simply visit feisworld.com and you'll be able to learn more about Tsering and the program she is supporting. Without further ado, please welcome Tsering Doma Sherpa to the Feisworld podcast. So hi, Tsering, and thank you so much for joining me on Feisworld. How are you doing today?
I am doing wonderful. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great. I am so thrilled to be chatting with you because, to let my audience know, I have known you for as long as I've been in this country. I have now officially known you for 16 years. That's a long time for both of our lives.
It is. It is. It is. It's long.
So I remember, when I first met you, and I have this still very clear vision and recollection of you as this, young, hardworking, smart Asian woman. I knew you were kind of smart. You're smarter than the rest of us, and you worked hard. And, you were the only student from Nepal at the time in our entire school, Freiburg Academy. But what's interesting is part of me always thought that because you're hardworking, you're smart, and you have such a great opportunity and infinite trajectory to go work on Wall Street and make your first $1 million with, very little effort for you, and go work at, a corporate company in the US and claim your fame, be on the Time magazine. I had all those thoughts for you. But instead, year after, each year, I feel like we get together, and I was surprised to find that you ended up working at the United Nations. You were helping out, volunteering at when earthquake happened, and you're now very involved in an NGO helping out women in Nepal. What happened? Why did you decide to do all these things?
I would like to begin with like how I was brought up. I think that's really what drove me to where I am today. I remember like when my father dropped me at Freiburg Academy, that was in 1999, and I was only 15 years old. And I remember, in between that emotional journey where he was dropping me off at the boarding school where we attended, I remember him saying, like, there's so many young people leaving the country and very few return. And he had always said, what if everybody is leaving the country, what remains is the traditional folks that's going to continue running the country with no innovative ideas. Just, they're very happy with what they have going on, but there are no challenges. So the outcomes will always be the same thing. And I wanted to change the mindset of people too, because when I returned in 2009, I think there were not as many returnees. I just wanted to kind of look into the possibilities of what I can do in Nepal. I didn't know exactly what, but I knew I needed to give it a chance because I've always known myself as being a risk taker. And I felt that being the first to have any kind of education, at least at the master's level, I had somewhat confident that, I would do good in Nepal, I would get a job, and so forth. But that was wrong of me to, think that way, because it was very challenging for me for the first year and a half. I couldn't even get a job, and I realized that it's become very competitive and in many ways unfair as well, because I felt I had the qualities and the potential, but as they say, it's not about what you know, but it's about who you know. So that's when I started building networks within my close community, because remember, I was away for like a decade. And so all the friends that I left behind in 1999, a lot of friends had already gone abroad, or, they were married or something like that. But so I had to kind of build my own social network and meet people and kind of, maintain the relationship and attend a lot of social functions. And thereby I was able to kind of hold my place in an organization where I was overlooking the outreach of the projects that they were holding, that mainly focused on communications. So that was a wonderful experience. I was there for 2.5 years. I got to learn a lot about media and the history of it, and also about going into rural parts of Nepal and meeting the locals, hearing out their stories, and executing it to the world to know. that there is a life beyond the borders.
Wow. So this was the opportunity called, is this Equal Access Nepal?
Correct.
Oh, wow.
Correct.
May I ask, was it through a friend that you met at the time? Did you apply through the traditional channel? How did you obtain that offer at Nepal?
I saw the vacancy announcement on one of the national daily newspaper in Nepal. And I remember the country director at the time, he asked me questions regarding finance. And I remember being very blunt, and I didn't even have a second thought about how to say properly. And my answer was that, I lived in the state for a decade, and I lived on my own, and I scraped through things to survive. And I think I did pretty well. And that was my answer.
Could you take us back to when you were 15, 16, living at Freiburg Academy by yourself? And how did you plan for your personal finance back then in order to survive for years on your own?
Oh, that was such a challenging period. And I was, like you said, only 15 years old. I think it took a lot of sacrifice that I'm still paying off.
Such as?
I mean, I get this reminder from my parents, how much loan they had to take to send me to school, and that still hasn't been paid. But, the point of the matter is it was so important for my parents to give me the opportunity to have an advanced degree as possible.
If I remember correctly, you have a brother as well?
I do. I have two brothers.
Oh, two brothers, younger brothers. And
Yes.
You're the oldest in the family. And I'm not sure if is it unusual or untraditional to kind of send the oldest daughter at such a young age to the US, taking up a loan instead of saying, having you settle down, have you take care of your brothers?
My father, to this day, he always talks about, woman empowerment. He says, that girls have equal rights to have education as much as the boys. They gave me that opportunity. And it was not, like I wasn't treated extra than my brothers. We were all treated equally. Mm-hmm. And what came out of it is slightly different because I think we all have a different ways of learning and contributing. My brothers, they're doing well in their own ways. My youngest one, he is in British Army. So he is currently based in the United Kingdom. Mm-hmm. And my brother, who also went to Freiburg Academy, he is now back in Nepal as well. So we are actually setting an example that, you can go anywhere in the world for education and advanced knowledge. But what is the most valuable thing is what do you give back to the community and how do you help the community grow along with you at the same time.
In terms of living in Nepal or kind of reliving and migrating back to your homeland, what does it feel? What are some of the a few top reasons, or does it come easily? Is there any part of integration back to Nepal other than seeking your first job, which was challenging? Are there any day-to-day lifestyle changes that you had to consider and adapt?
Oh, yes. I had completely reverse cultural shock, and it was very hard to make people understand what I was going through because here I left at the age of 15, which is a very prime age. And the part about the struggle adjusting in the States was itself a difficult journey. But then I was just doing well and I was independent and, I had my own apartment. I was managing the finances, from fooding to lodging to all of that, entertainment. But then when I moved back here, and as you probably know, most South Asian countries, there is this high practice of living with your family until whenever. So even, guys are judged in the West, why is he still living with his parents? But that's very common in Nepal, like many Asian countries. And so here of course, I have to live with my parents. That also meant that I have to get home on time. I had to report where I was, who I was with, and when was I going to get back. The door's going to be locked. How are you going to get in? So there's this whole guilt trip.
Oh, this will
that
kill
you have
me.
to call and ask to open the gate. And, the security wise, it's not like, I don't want to name a country, but it's not a war zone or anything like that. But here we take security very seriously, just as a preventive measure.
Understand.
So, girls, if they're out late, you just make an assumption that she's a bad girl, if you're home early and you're making meals and, you're preparing tea for your parents, that's the definition of a good girl.
Were you good? Were you considered good or bad or a mix of both or too career driven? What category did you fall into?
I try to balance between, being a career oriented woman and traditional at the same time. But again, you can never make your parents happy enough.
Yeah, no, I completely echo that. It's funny that you brought it up because of, I'm not sure you have seen the most recent SK2 video where the commercial itself talks about leftover women, which is this term that is commonly referenced and used in China. And finally surfaced up to, why are we calling women left over between the ages 25 to 30 if she's not if she's not married, simply not even in the serious relationship, that you have to be either engaged or married to be qualified as worthy. So that certainly started an international debate. But I can absolutely imagine, as I've gone through that myself a little bit, with some of my family crisis. And as I mentioned, my dad was very ill and he eventually passed away. And there was a very tough number of years deciding basically how is my mom going to, is she going to live on her own? Is she going to live with me? So I absolutely understand that just the weight that you had to carry on your shoulders as a woman, in this case as the oldest child in the family, where there's so many responsibility that came to bear, and you seem to be doing very well. So for that, I'm very proud of you, and I wanted to tell you that myself.
Oh, thank you, Faye.
You're welcome, Tsering.
We need that all the time.
Really, it's hard, and at times that it feels impossible. And I know that this is something that we could talk about almost, to no end. But I think if we were to kind of, while we're on this chapter, to give some of the young women in their mid to late 20s, possibly into their 30s, some advice on how to manage our expectation related to our culture, before we move on to a different topic personally, and I want to hear your opinion as well, is that you really have to believe in what you do and what your life is about, and you have to live a life for yourself, not a life that your parents want for you.
I completely agree with what you just said, but about the point of knowing what you want to do is sometimes not the case or for everyone, because you are in this discovery phase, and it's, you want to be empathetic. You don't want sympathy, you don't want sympathy from your parents. You don't want sympathy from other, people in your life, but you want to, I don't know, the tradition part of me is I'm very empathetic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very empathetic to the point where I feel like I'm overthinking it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think my advice would be to come to a middle ground, where you are not overdoing it. And you come up with a formula within, your family and your professional life and your social life, where you say that, me coming home at 8 o'clock should be considered normal, that you convince your parents to make them believe that wherever you are there for the good reason. You're not just there, The other day I was on a bike with my friend who's who I've known since high school. And my dad saw us on the bike and he was freaked out. He was like, why are you with that guy? I mean, it's just like, I'm engaged in everything. So they were more worried about if my fiance's family will see me on some other guy's bike.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
I know. Yeah. I mean, it's like typical, it sounds crazy. So I had to make them believe, this was solely because I needed to get somewhere and he was there and he offered me a ride and that was the quickest way to get to my destination and so forth, so you have a lot of explaining to do a lot. So I don't know. I don't know if it's only my case, but I feel sometimes I'm not trusted. I'm not trusted not because of me. I'm not trusted because of what other people thinks of me, which has nothing to do with me. You know what I mean?
Asian parents are just on a much more pronounced level, an exaggerated version, more melodramatic, but I think universally there are certain behaviors that are kind of across the board. So we can certainly talk about this forever, but I do want to explore some of, basically in recent years, I saw that you're volunteering a couple of times during earthquakes. And then, it's a very saddened time in our lives. And I have personally witnessed very traumatic earthquakes in China as well. And it just how it weighs on the nation and the country itself and your family and your friends. But could you tell me a little bit about how you were involved and why you were involved in the rescuing process?
I would not say it's a rescue thing. I don't know. The word rescue to me links with, like direct life saving. That wasn't really my case. So what happened was like right after the earthquake, I think we were all in a state of shock. I think we had hints along the way, how like every 80 years, with the turn of the history, the earthquake will revisit. We knew that. I think everybody knew that. But was the government ready for it? No. The preparedness from the government part was very lacking. But for me, I experienced it for I think the first time, to that magnitude. It was the first time, and I was on the 5th floor of the building. And it just happened. And for me, I didn't see the point of running down the stairs because, generally those are the weakest portion of the building. If it falls down, you are in greater harm than any other room. And of course, you go next to the pillar and all that. preventive things. But what, I was with my father, and we just literally like sat there, like we didn't move an inch. Like it was a big room, so we felt that was safe to be in. We didn't, like, we just decided not to move out. But soon as it stopped, we just ran out of the building, like a ghost was chasing us. So after that period, and with aftershocks on and off throughout the day, we were like completely paralyzed, like I think mentally completely paralyzed, and not sure exactly what to do. And my mother was not around. She had gone to a monastery for some teaching, and we couldn't get hold of her. Whereas my brother, one of the brothers, was up in the mountain, very close to Mount Everest. We couldn't get hold of him. And the youngest one, who is in the United Kingdom, he sends me a message saying, what's going on, and there was no network, nothing, nobody knew what's going on. We were getting reports from people from abroad, like they were saying, oh, this got down and that got down, and all these stories, but it was all indirect. We never got to see it in firsthand.
I was able to see your status update on Facebook, as along with many of the other of our Facebook friends, understanding that you're safe and you're not harmed. But then shortly after that, I saw pictures where you were helping people out. Correct me if I'm wrong. And you're helping out in ways that you can, not as part of the official rescue team. For you to help other people, how did you feel?
It was amazing. So after I think almost nearly a week, we were just, in a little cocoon, trying to figure out how are we going to do this, whether we should go back into the house, what do we need? And, all the basic things that we always took for granted. And again, there was no network. So we didn't know for a long period of time what was going on, and we had the radio, but that was not as accessible as well. But when we did get access to the internet and the phone and everything, I was so shocked. Like, I was completely shocked and even angry with myself that I did not act on, and I did not help out people, because I was just with my family. And normally that's like your first state of mind, is like, you need to protect your family, you need to be there for them. But then we were doing fine. I mean, we were comparatively doing fine. So I felt the need to do something. And sure enough, my friends who are equally like-minded, even, greater minded people, they contacted me and they're like, let's go. It doesn't matter whether we have the equipments or not. It doesn't matter if we have, funds for it or not. Let's just go and check out places and what's the actual story, because, news a lot of time is always exaggerated. So we wanted to see for ourselves what's going on. And by profession, my friends, some are doctors and some are engineers, and I'm into communication. So we thought, this is a great team. We can go and give them medical support. We can consult them about how the houses should be framed, because now they were living in a temporary housing. So the engineer friends, they could make that kind of professional advice. And so we just went on bikes and went on to the areas that we heard that had the greater devastation. So we did assessments here and there. Again, this is just group of friends trying to do whatever we can to help out people, those in need. So we went to five major areas that were hit the most in the nearby area from Kathmandu. And slowly enough, like my friend who's a doctor, he had networks with pharmacies, so he got those over-the-counter drugs and basic, from Band-Aid to Neosporin. Those are the most basic things. But again, so he had the discounts and everything, so we were able to purchase those and go out on the field and give an orientation on how to maintain sanitation and how to prevent themselves from other airborne disease, because that during that time it was also rainy season, and these people are all in open land, and there's no proper toilet, so on. So my friend was able to give those kind of advice. And so along the way, we were just taking pictures and, just posting it, because we felt, people should be inspired by what we are doing. And we were not only the one, surely, but we just wanted to, have a record of, it was a journey of friends, but with a purpose. So slowly enough, like a lot of friends got to see that from our social media portals. So they were willing to support us to not, so they were sending us, bucks here and there. So we just gathered that and we went out and got basic needs, even more basic needs, from like food, rice, that's one of the staple dishes in Nepal, like many Asian countries. So we got rice and, basic, very basic thing that cannot go immediate ruin, but will support for the survival until they can figure out where to go.
Moving on to your most recent endeavor, and first of all, I need to learn how to say it. It's Daayitwa. How do you pronounce it?
Daayit, like tea. Daayitwa.
Oh, okay. Daayitwa. I'm gonna do my best. we're
but the English, it's a Nepali terminology, and the direct translation of it is responsibility.
Yeah. This is much easier to say. Translate the responsibility, and there's a whole theme of helping other people, try to be helpful and volunteering. And in this case, I feel like this is a project which really inspired me to kind of interview you for this podcast. And that's why we reconnected on this, is that string of what I just mentioned, plus, and this most recent project, WREAP, which I'm sure you can help us understand what this acronym means. It's a project to help and support women in Nepal. Tell us a little bit about that.
I would say it's a movement. It's not just a campaign, We are trying to accelerate women entrepreneurship in Nepal, which we believe will be an important supporting factor to economic growth of Nepal. We, as an organization, we are working in 4 different sectors: leadership, entrepreneurship, civic engagement, and governance. Today, I'll focus more on the entrepreneurship, whereby it is a accelerator program, not an incubator program. So we're looking for entrepreneurs who have started a venture, who has started an enterprise in some form. It's already established, not established in a sense like successful, but they have a dream. They want to accomplish something. So we target for people as such, and we hold a district-wise competition. And what REAP has become is from those experiences that we gathered since 2014, where we focused on 3 districts, Palpa, Gulmi, and Ramechhap. And what we do there is we hold a district-wise competition where the entrepreneurs will fill out an application stating their enterprise and what it stands for them and how they want to grow and what they want to learn and how can we support them and so forth. So in each district, what we do is we screen those applications and we pick out the we pick out the top 40 applications, our top 40 applicants, and after that selection, after the announcement of the top 40 selection, they are encouraged to advocate for themselves. Like how the US president campaigns work, like they go to states and they share their goals and they share their ideas and they try to get people on board and vote for them. Similarly, we use the same tactic whereby they will gain votes through two mediums. One is text messages. We give a code for each 40 entrepreneurs, and if people like them, if they are convinced, using those codes, they will send in their votes. Likewise, there is a global participation. We do a bio of each entrepreneurs on Facebook, and every like counts as a vote. So the combination of the text votes and the Facebook votes, we screen out the top 20 out of the pool of 40 entrepreneurs.
I think it's very helpful. And for my listeners, I will be posting some of these videos and links for people to really engage with the content, because it was very helpful for me to watch the video and watch the women speak about their challenges, struggles, and excitement and what this opportunity brings for them. So yeah, please continue. It makes total sense.
Yeah. All right. So based on those votes, we pick out the top 20. Now we feel, these are all becoming exercise of, indirect, like we want to know them firsthand. So we create a pool of jury members who are experts in these fields, who are affiliated with the government, who are affiliated with the private sector, education, academics. And we create that pool and we go on this journey of visiting those 20 entrepreneurs by the house. Like we will go to their houses, we will interview them, we will see what they are doing. We want to ensure that whatever, wherever they have come so far, we want to ensure that it's authentic. We want to ensure that we believe what they are up to. We believe, that it's genuine. And so with these interviews, based on these interviews, we pick out the top 10 out of, from that screening through the interviews, which is a very rigorous process because these districts, because it's a district level competition, some places are so remote that it takes you days to get there. And, the interview process is always long. So it's a very dedicated process. And so the top 10s then will receive $250 each to support their businesses.
Wow. So what does that mean? What does the $250 mean to these women? What can they do with the money?
Can expand their businesses as simply as getting loans, using it in installment to, say, for example, buy a goat for farming. If they are into dairy products, they can, buy a goat and help them survive or enhance their businesses for months along the way. And they can invest on land so they can expand their businesses in that manner, as well as marketing and distance to travel. If they choose to, they can also expand those avenues through the support of $250. That's equivalent to 25,000 rupees in Nepal currency.
Wow.
And that's a large sum. I mean, people don't even make 25,000 a month in average in Nepal.
what is the average income of a Nepali family living in rural area, not in city?
I have met people who are making thousands of dollars per month in the rural parts of Nepal if they do it right.
Thousands of US dollars. Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, like, if there are people who are making $1,000 per month, what is that difference with people who are not making as much? So I feel like in terms of the entrepreneurship angle,
Mm-hmm.
the people who are making that large sum is has access to the market. They're able to sell their produces and they're doing everything on their own. But then there are people who are just focused on producing, and then somebody else is making profit out of it. This is, again, this is more like entrepreneurship angle, but there are other, sectors who might be making equally more money. But then if you look at the rate of Nepalese that are going abroad, like Gulf countries for labor job, is so high. Like when you go to remote part of Nepal, you don't see any young men. Even women nowadays have left their villages for greater opportunities. And I think what Daayitwa is trying to do is show you the possibilities that you can do something in your home country if you put an extra effort, if you have that enabling environment.
Based on the donor people who are very involved in this project, people who have donated that through generosity.com, do you see who are these people? Are they local? Are they from Nepal? Are they from around the world?
At the moment, we have received funds from 37 people.
Mm-hmm.
And these 37 people are mostly from our networks only, because we have strategized to kind of get those people who trust us, who believe in us, and hopefully they can also spread the word for us. So those have been our focus so far. But in coming days, we are focusing on more locals, in terms of getting their support. And I don't mean it always on a monetary way, but also being part of this journey with us and being an advocate for us. We are designing perks. I'm sure you know about perks and how that attracts potential donors to support our campaign. Perk is way of giving an incentive to our potential donors, whereby they also get something out of their donation. So last night I was staying up designing these. So what we are trying to do is these perks can be of products, like a local products. For example, in the district of Palpa, there is a fabric. It's very popular and significant to Nepali culture called Dhaka, and it's made in Palpa. And I was designing this perk whereby it says, if you donate $100, you will get local products, Dhaka products from Palpa, and delivered to you by XYZ. So it's a great way of promoting local products, promoting the culture of Nepal, the art of Nepal at the same time, and their contribution is also going to the women of Nepal, particularly.
So I can imagine that's something not only it's attractive to local people, in other parts of Nepal where people won't be able to access to this material, fabrics directly. But I can only imagine, and outside of Nepal, in North America and other parts of Asia, do you think that, it's in a way that I don't want, on one hand, I don't mean that by making a donation, $50, $100 is maybe significant on the personal level, but you also have to balance that with shipping, with running such program. So do you think that there may be an opportunity to kind of extend that offer to people outside of Nepal?
That perks is focused for more people in abroad. And you're right, the shipping is very tricky, because if you end up spending more money than what you're getting, that is going to be a loss for the campaign.
Correct.
So we are figuring out like ways of doing this. Like I was just doing this research yesterday that Indiegogo has partnered with this company Amplifier, which works as a warehouse and tries to gives you like 10% discount on shipments. But again, I need to explore this more. I have touched base with the company and hoping to hear back from them today and see how they functions, because they had mixed messages like saying warehouse and designings and stuff like that. So what we want is, we have the products, we just want it shipped. One other way is just doing it the old school way. If we know of someone going to the States, we'll just request them, like a pro bono thing where they can, take the material for us in wholesale, and then they can, help us ship it from state to state versus from Nepal to New York, for example. So those were some ways we were thinking, but also, we will always do a calculation of how much, what the product is worth, because we are also buying those products from these local entrepreneurs, and we are also calculating the estimate shipping cost, and then also measuring how much money can we make out of it that goes towards the campaign.
For people to learn more about WREAP, if they would like to get involved, if they want to learn more of the story, where can they find you and your organization?
So we have a Facebook page under the title DAAYITWA. It's only been about 14 days now, and we have already raised $3,000, and there's long to go. If you go on Generosity by Indiegogo, the title is Women Rural Enterprise Project. Yeah, so those are the ways. And, we have our organization website as well, which is DAAYITWA.org.
This is great. I'll include all the links on our post. As you know, that I do create a blog post to go along with the audio piece. So we will make sure that people visit. But yeah, thank you so much, Tsering, for joining me on Feisworld and sharing your journey, your wisdom, and best of luck to you and your organization. I hope we continue this conversation.
To listen to more episodes of the Feisworld podcast, please subscribe on iTunes or visit feisworld.com. That is FEISWORLD, where you can find show notes, links, other tools, and resources. You can also follow me on Twitter at Feisworld. Until next time, thanks for listening.